Want to get to the breaking news that we're following, the fear that a meltdown at one of the nuclear reactors in Japan may be underway. Gene Meserve is watching the story for us. Update our viewers, Gene, on what we know right now.
Well, a nuclear expert earlier today called it a Hail Mary pass. The Japanese were pumping seawater into a reactor to try and keep it cool. In addition, infusing it with boron in an attempt to stop the radiological chemical reaction, the nuclear reaction. All of this, a desperate effort to prevent a meltdown. The Japanese ambassador to the U.S. Said on our air a short time ago that there was no meltdown in progress. But an official with Japan's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency told CNN it is a possibility. There may be one underway. He said we have still not confirmed that there's an actual meltdown, but there is a possibility. The reason they think there might be one underway is that they have detected radioactive cesium and radioactive iodine outside of that plant. That official went on to say, however, that we have confidence we will resolve this. That was reiterated by Japan's chief cabinet secretary. He said in a press conference a short time ago, we can stabilize the situation. Now, adding another level to this is the fact that a second reactor at that same plant is now having problems with its cooling system. This is exactly what started the problem at the first reactor. So that the temperature in that second unit is believed to be rising. We were told by a Japanese official that 9 people have now had radiation exposure. It's been detected on their clothing. At this point, they do not believe that is health-threatening, but the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, says that the Japanese government is considering distributing iodine tablets to the population. Iodine helps protect the thyroid from radiation exposure. In addition, the government has expanded the evacuation zone around this plant now to about 12 miles. The IAEA says about 170,000 people have been evacuated from the area. In addition, the Japanese news agency NHK is reporting that the military has moved into the area, a team that specializes in cleaning up radiological contamination. What is the U.S. government doing about this? Well, the the Nuclear Regulatory Commission has sent 2 experts to Japan. They're people who are expert in this particular kind of reactor. In addition, the end both keeping very careful tabs and keeping the government of Japan. Wolf, back to you.
Gene, stand by for a moment. Yori Ko is joining us on the phone right now. She's a correspondent for the Wall Street Journal. I understand you were not that far away from one of these plants earlier. Yori, tell us what you know.
Right. I was about a mile away from the explosion of the first reactor, well, about 45 minutes prior to the explosion. So myself and my colleague got out about 45 minutes before with the last group of evacuees. As we were interviewing one of the officials heading up the evacuation process, he was very calm and lucid, and then he got the announcement, and his face just changed color immediately, and things got very grim very quickly. And the last group of municipal employees were evacuated, and that's the group that we left with.
This explosion that occurred, and we have pictures of it, and we see the huge plumes of smoke that emerged from that explosion. Now, walk us through how that explosion happened.
Well, Wolf, I wasn't there for the actual explosion, but I can tell you that prior to it, I'm not sure how many people at the latest evacuation center, which is about 20 kilometers outside of the town, which is closest to the reactor. Things were fine there. I don't know to what extent they were informed of what was happening. I don't even know how much the officials back at the first evacuation center knew about what was going on, but they knew it was going to be bad.
And these reports that a meltdown may actually have started already, you've heard these reports, the Japanese ambassador to the United States, but what, if anything, do you know about that a meltdown may have occurred, may be occurring right now at one of these plants?
I don't think my intelligence, I'm privy to that kind of intelligence. However, I can tell you that when we were leaving the evacuation center, the officials were putting on these bright yellow hazmat type, face masks, assumed to protect themselves against any sort of radiation fallout that would occur.
How are you holding up, Yuri? What's it like for you?
It's fine. It's been a busy couple of days, but, nothing like the harrowing experience that these people up north are going through.
I want you to hold on a moment. Kenneth Cukier is joining us now. He's a correspondent for The Economist magazine. He's joining us via Skype from Tokyo. How are you holding up, Kenneth?
Well, I'm holding up very well, but of course, what I'm hearing on your broadcast is very alarming. I think that there's a few things that we can say with certainty, and that is the needs of the Japanese government. They must be transparent. They must recognize that the eyes of the world are watching them and the eyes of the region, and how they respond is going to be critical. They have an opportunity to have a model response on how in a domestic setting with nuclear power during a crisis can develop international links, be transparent to its own people and to the international community, prove that transparency by inviting in international experts and having full disclosure. Anything less is going to create huge problems for them. First, huge problems. Secondly, huge problems internationally, because what's happening here, we can just imagine will happen somewhere else, in other circumstances as nuclear energy becomes more popular around the world. Japan is a first world country, and it needs to have a first world transparency and disclosure mechanism.
Well, what's the track record? You've covered Japan, you live there, you've been reporting the situation in Japan for The Economist, earlier for other publications. What kind of track record does the Japanese government see, albeit obviously nothing as serious as this crisis that's going on right now?
In truth, it's mixed, and that gives a lot of worry and concern for people. The Japanese language doesn't lend itself to complete clarity. Just as in English we can obfuscate and speak in general and vague terms, so can they very well, and it's employed very frequently. As one small example, we do know that on Friday night, immediately after the earthquake, Nato Kan, the Prime Minister, told us that there was no radiation leakage. Well, that's true. What he could have said is that we also have a small crisis brewing insofar as we have a cooling system at one plant that wasn't shut down. We found out about that, but it wasn't through the words of the Prime Minister. What we do need to know is what is actually happening, and we need to have that backed up again by outside experts who are here who can make that lead. Here's an example of a problem. The IEA agency has recently come out by just describing what's going on in Japan. But if you look closely at their statement, you'll see that it comes directly from the Japanese authorities. It's not from their own words. They didn't verify it themselves. They just got a phone call from someone in Japan, and that's simply not good enough. And to quote the Japan's ambassador to America, I would argue that's meaningless. And the reason why is he's simply on the other end of a phone call from someone who's told him information, and it may or may not be true, or it may or may not be up to date. So what we need to have is authorities in Tokyo telling us what's happening, and it has to be believable, because if there's a credibility misstep, then nothing that they say from now on is going to be believed, and that's going to create panic.
Kenneth Cukier of The Economist, hold on for a moment. Yuri Ko of the Wall Street Journal is holding clear.
There have been, and I was on a conference call earlier today with a number of nuclear experts who were finding that very frustrating. They were being asked a lot of questions about how they thought this would play out. Would there be a meltdown? Would there be a breach of containment? Don't have on this. One other thing I wanted to clarify, Wolf, about the radiation that we know is outside the plant. We know 9 people at least have been exposed. They have been venting radioactive steam from the reactor. It's an effort to keep down the pressure, reasons, but we know at least it's because they've been doing that venting, which is an effort to keep the plant intact. Secondly, as far as we know, the containment at this point has been preserved. We've been told by Japanese officials that, in fact, the very important technology that's around the reactor itself is still intact. That is a good sign. It means that even if there is a meltdown, there's a possibility that everything would be held within there and there wouldn't be any sort of catastrophic reliefs of radiation, Wolf.
All right, Gene, I want you to stand by. I want Kenneth Cukier of The Economist magazine to stand by, and Yuri Ko of the Wall Street Journal. Our own reporters are on the scene right now in the devastation. We're going to go there and check in with them right after we come back. The breaking news continues here in The Situation.